Hey folks, on today's video, we're going to talk about the basics to running an adventure. Hey, my name is Benson. If I haven't met you before, I love that you're here checking out my video. Thank you so much for that. Today's video is called The Basics to Running an Adventure. It's video 2 of my series called The Art of DMing, where I try and help people who are maybe newer or brand new to the game get their feet wet and get started DMing some games. Now, there are 5 basics, I think, to running an adventure. Like I said, this is my own personal list. Feel free to leave a comment in the section below if you have other things that I didn't cover. But for me, the first thing that really helps me when it comes to thinking about running an adventure is the setting. I love thinking about the setting, and there's a particular way that I do this. Everyone does it kind of differently. For me, I love movies. I love sort of cinematic landscapes, things like that, and it really helps me sort of think about what is the setting, what is the place, where is this all going to happen? Where are the players going to be running around? Is it an Arctic tundra with limited resources? Maybe some wildlife in the distance? Is it going to be lush forests with trees that are 200 feet tall and tropical birds flying around? Is it going to be on the ocean with sea battles, with large waves, leviathan creatures, things like that? Is it going to be hot, arid desert with insects and unique creatures sort of roaming the sand dunes? Is it going to be a simple village in a simple forest with small buildings and poor people who need help? What is the setting that this is all going to take place? Where your adventurers, where your players going to be inhabiting, where they're going to be running around? Something for you to think about. Like I said, for me, I'm very cinematic when it comes to thinking about things. So I like to kind of think of it like a movie, right? That scene. Think about how you want to describe it. What are the colors like? What are the sounds? What are maybe some of the smells? Engage those senses. And that's going to help you come up with your setting and create a very memorable, vivid setting. I think one of my favorite settings that I created was when my players were wandering in this place called the Feywild, this place of magic, but kind of rampant magic within nature itself. And I came up with this pink hued forest, right? I pictured almost like cherry blossom trees, but everywhere. And sort of animals that, because of the Fey magic, have been sort of changed, right? I had deer that had two heads, because they were very unique. I had bears that had sort of tendrils coming out of their back that were glowing, things like that, right? Things like that are gonna make your setting memorable and exciting. The second thing I wanna talk about is characters. And I'm not talking about the player characters. Of course, your players are gonna bring their own characters into the setting. But what characters are your players going to interact with within the setting? Who are some of the folks that live here or populate your world? Who are some of the people that are native to this setting that your adventurers probably aren't from? Are they peasants? Are they nobles? Are they questing knights? Are they people in need of help? Or maybe they're the local authorities. Who are some of these characters? What role do they play within the setting, within the story? You know, are they the quote-unquote quest giver, the one who's gonna sort of send the players on their quest? Are they an NPC that's gonna help them? Recently, I came up with an NPC named Wardell, who is this half-elf sort of scout who really is a tracker local in the area, who's really helping the players navigate the mysterious woods that they're a part of. Right? Who are some of these characters that inhabit this place, this setting, and are going to be vital to the story? Some are going to be much more major characters. It could even be the villain, right? For you to think about, if there is a villain. Or a main NPC who's going to guide them or give them conversations. But I find that in my experience, also some small characters can be really helpful and really bring a lot to your story. From the barmaid at the local tavern, to the blacksmith, to the farmer who just maybe needs a hand or is struggling with their crop. Little characters like that can also help as well populate your world and give it texture and feeling and help players in their experience. The third thing is this, for the basics of running an adventure: conflict. What is happening? Your players are here for a reason. These heroes or adventurers are here for a reason. Maybe they're here to get the reward, or maybe there's something mysterious going on. Every adventure has conflict, and one of the things that I really believe in and really try to strive to is to put my players in a position of being active participants in the world. That conflict happens, and it would not change. Nothing is going to change if my players don't do something about it. They're the bringers of change in this situation. Maybe it's a tyrant who is overtaxing the population and they need to be stopped. Maybe it's a wild manticore or dragon sort of ravaging the countryside. Maybe there's mysterious deaths happening, or undead creatures from the local graveyard are springing up. Every story has conflict. Every adventure has conflict. What is that conflict? Why are your players here? And what difference are they going to make by participating in this conflict, by being the resolution to this conflict? What problem is there to solve? These are some things to maybe think about as you're putting your adventure together. And in some ways, the conflict is actually the most important thing, because the setting, the characters is all backdrop for what is actually happening here. And that's what your players are going to buy into, and what's going to keep them coming back and playing more and want to play. They're going to want to solve these problems and stop this conflict. Number 4, we have encounters. Now, D&D is ultimately a game about combat. I love social role-playing. It's something that I do a lot. There are sessions where there's no combat at all. I love mystery, intrigue, things like that. I love drama, etc. But there's always going to be sort of encounters that happen, whether they're, fighting encounters between swords and shields and lances and spears and axes and chainmail and magic, or possibly even social encounters, right? Conflict of the minds, things like that. Right? Deception, persuasion, investigation, things like that. Planning these encounters ahead of time are going to really help you sort of frame the adventure. Right? You have the conflict, you know what the problems are, and now you have to plan sort of the encounters, where that resolution is going to happen, where your players are going to come in and ultimately overcome the problem. These are going to form your encounters. Encounters can have a variety of different aspects to them, and I'll make a much longer video about how to maybe craft unique encounters. But some things to think about are, what deems a success when it comes to encounter. An encounter isn't always about killing everyone, though it can be at times. It can be about convincing someone or stopping something from happening. Once again, kind of like we said with setting, where is it going to happen? What is the difficulty going to be of this encounter? Is it going to be an easy encounter? Is it supposed to be a warm-up? Of course, every adventure can and usually has multiple encounters, right? Is this first encounter going to be sort of a little warm-up? Or is this encounter going to be sort of this epic boss fight? What does that look like? What are some of the mechanics of the encounter going to be? Is it going to be an empty room? Maybe it's an arena, right? Where there's nothing around, there's no cover. It's your adventurers versus the sort of gladiators that they're fighting. Or maybe it takes place over 4 different levels and a 200-foot building with a line of sight being a very big deal. One of the most intriguing and interesting encounters I ever had the pleasure of running was when my players were really wandering around the dark. There were humans, so they couldn't really see. They had a torch that gave them a bit of light, but there were skeletons sort of in the dark firing arrows at them, and they didn't know where the arrows were coming from. Preparing your encounters in advance are going to help you sort of shape the conflict and your adventure, and going to help a lot. Though, of course, your players will do the unexpected, and you will always have to come up with random encounters for them, which I can make another video about how to do that as well. My last point on this video, I don't want to take too long, is resolution. And resolution is a very important part of an adventure. Your players have gone on this adventure, they've seen the sights, they've done the encounters, they've met the people, they've solved the problem, and the question kind of is, now what? Sometimes this can be something that we as dungeon masters like to rush, right? Sometimes it can be, okay, well, you get this magical item or this gold or whatever. But oftentimes I find it's really meaningful when you can take time for there to be resolution, whether it be villagers who are thankful to your players. Maybe they saw them as hostile before and knew annoyances, but now they're very thankful for their help. One thing to consider is, how does the view of the adventures change in light of this conflict being resolved? Could maybe a lord or a noble who really needed this problem solved now looks very favorably on your adventurers and really wants to bless them or thank them with gifts. In that vein, what rewards do your players get? Sometimes I fall into the trap of not thinking about the rewards, and I'm scurrying through my book in order to try and figure out what magical item I want to give them or whatnot. I find when I prepare in advance, sort of in light of this resolution, it's really rewarding for the players to receive something. It makes them feel like their hard work was really worth it and they've really worked for this item or whatnot. But also, like I mentioned, sometimes the personal relationships between characters or the community and the adventurers is almost just as rewarding. Folks, thank you so much for hanging out with me again for episode 2 of the Art of DMing. I had a lot of fun making this one. I hope you guys had fun listening to it, enjoying it. Hopefully you learned something from it. Please leave a comment below if anything stood out to you. Let me know what part was most interesting to you and which part you'd like to hear more about. I'm planning on actually making videos on every single one of these points, going in much more detail than I could today. As always, feel free to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified of more videos that I'm going to be making. I'm aiming for 1 a week, maybe 2 a week. We'll see how I can do. I started streaming really recently at twitch.tv/initialroll. You can find me there. Some of it's video games, but other of it's also D&D related. So check out that if you'd like to. Until next time, keep rolling.